Nowadays, we are able to reproduce plants even by methods like tissue culture, where a small plant is grown in test tubes, but that we will study in later classes. Now coming to the sexual reproduction. In the sexual reproduction, we know that the reproduction takes place through seeds. Now, how are seeds formed? Through flowers. Flowers are the reproductive parts. These flowers may have either the male part or the female or both. When a flower has both male as well as female reproductive part, then it is called bisexual. Flowers have both male and female reproductive parts. Example, rose, mango, and so on. Most of the flowers are bisexual, and unisexual flowers have only one type of reproductive part. Either male or female. Example, corn, bhutta. So, like this we find that the plants can be of two types, having bisexual flowers and unisexual flowers. When we studied the parts of the flower, we studied about two parts. One was the male part called stamen. Stamen has a thread-like structure called filament and a bilobed structure called anther. Bilobed means two lobes. These are the two lobes, right? So, it is bilobed. In the anther, there are the pollen grains which are yellow in color, and these pollen grains contain two male gametes. Now coming to the female part. The female part is called pistil. Pistil is made up of three parts: the stigma, style, ovary, and this ovary contains ovule. It is the ovule which has the female gamete, right? Now, when there has to be a fusion of male and female gamete. So, how will the male gamete reach the female gamete? This process of transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called pollination. Say these are the two flowers. This is the pistil and this is the stamen. Now, if the pollen grains fall on the stigma of the same flower, then it is self-pollination. But sometimes what happens is that there are two flowers, the pollen grains of one fall on the stigma of the other flower. Now, this is called cross pollination, and obviously for this transfer some external agency is required. So, that can be wind, water, insects, or even small birds like hummingbird. That also helps in cross pollination. So, the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called pollination. It is of two types: self pollination when pollen grains fall on the stigma of same flower. Right? And second is cross pollination. When pollen grains fall on the stigma of another flower. And this can be with the help of wind, water, insects, small birds. Now see, if this is the pistil, this is the ovule here, and here is the pollen grain. This pollen grain forms a tube called pollen tube, and with the help of this pollen tube, it carries the male gamete to the female gamete. Once male gamete reaches the female gamete, then both unite with each other and the resultant cell is called zygote. And this fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. The fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. It results in the formation of a single cell called zygote. Then this zygote divides and redivides to form an embryo. And finally, the ovule forms the seed and the ovary forms the fruit. All the other parts after pollination, like sepals, petals, style, stigma, stamen, they just perish, they fall off after pollination. And after fertilization, the only thing left is this ovary. And in this ovary, it swells up, it enlarges in size, it becomes the fruit, and inside is the seed. So you can say the role of fruit is the protection of seeds and also dispersal of seeds. Now what is dispersal of seeds?